Yeah. Actually, did you see? It was probably 10 years ago. Somebody broke into Hague's on Jetty Road in Gwinnell. Like they broke in through the roof. They stole money and stuff like that. But they also stole some of the chocolates. But they bit into a few of the chocolates and they got caught from dental records.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Didn't even finish it.
I love that idea of just like finding someone and leaving it there. Why would you do that? Like, as you said, Dave given me.
Forget the money. These Scotch almonds are delicious.
Awesome. Strongman seen leaving Hague's chocolates at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Know anything about Hague's chocolates break-in? No.
No.
That's awesome. All right, here we go. There we go. It just goes quiet. It's great. Yeah. Hello, everybody. This is Hollywood Matt Connolly with the double biceps. This is in the contract. I don't have any control over the contract. I just have to do it. It's written in there. I don't make the rules. One of the hosts of the Daily Combat podcast. He joined today by co-host, the winner of the Dave Stockbridge of the Year, 47 years in a row. It is, in fact, Dave Stockbridge. And also we are joined by a special guest, a host, who is made it back to South Australia, found the map, found where to go. It is actually here in Adelaide.
I think she ran the way.
Yeah, fresh from a 200-kilometre walk-run, or Mickey Rourke, as we were talking about last time on the episode. It's Isabella Rossitano.
Thank you.
And our first ever episode guest making his return to the show. It is, in fact, Strongman, one of Australia's strongest men, Jordan Biggie Steffans. So welcome back to the show. It's good to have you back.
It's great to be back. What intros you guys give. This, like I said, can we just cut it now and I'm happy to leave. That was just the best part. That intro was great. What people got to understand is that you're 5 of them deep now.
That's right.
So the intro just flows out nicely right now.
That was take 7, but yeah. I do the editing, so I've make myself look good on it. So
maybe you should be performing artist now. So you're just mentioning you're leaning up. You're preparing for the Fringe Festival.
Yeah, I know. I'm knocking back your sponsored Hague's chocolates today. Just for brain function, the dark chocolate, for bulking, the lighter coloured chocolate. Nothing better than Hague's here on the show. But yeah, look, we're just looking to cut a little body weight coming into the Fringe. As I was saying, you guys obviously know about cutting weight for classes and stuff like that. For me, the Fringe is very different. It's performing arts, still strongman style stuff that I will still do in our show. But again, it's 50 minutes straight of performing and, it's physical performance. So for me, being 140 kilos on stage is just it's not worth it. It's not needed. I don't need to be that heavy. I don't need to be any stronger than what I am to do what we're doing. It's more about actually being able to do the tricks, do the show, but be able to get through the show without having a cardiac arrest partially through.
And fit into last year's costume. If we
can. Exactly right. The tights don't just get changed every year. But yeah, look, we'll look to come down. I don't know. I'm not too sure what weight I'll be. Again, I think last time we spoke about what I'd cut weight for certain strongman shows. Kind of similar for something like this is where I'll actually look at maybe probably being closer to that 135, 137K mark, just to be a little bit fitter for on stage and just to be able to get through the show. You're doing shows Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then Monday off, and you're doing them 8 p.m. every night. So, yeah, it's a lot, but it's very fast-paced, very moving very quickly. And again, you do get some sort of a rest, and the director of the show is very nice to me, understanding my fitness isn't as good as some of the other guys, but just, I think the other biggest guy in the show is like 90 kilos, or if that, maybe 80 odd. So I give... Wow. Yeah, it's a lot smaller. So they're just, it's just the fitness side. So come down a little bit, but not too much.
What sort of show, what happens during the show that you're doing?
I can't give too much away. You won't come to see it.
Give us an
this
idea.
is the plug time, right? So I plug Hague's now to plug our show. It's called Face Value. It's going to be in Gluttony in the Fringe Garden. So the idea of the show behind it is what we call, obviously, the show is called Face Value. So you're going to see a whole group of very different acrobats all on stage. Hopefully not as drunk as this bloke is right now, because I just saw that out of the corner of my eye, and that was great. So
It's a strong Scotch.
you know,
It is.
Yeah.
Strong like Jordan.
That's strong. As strong as this man right here.
I guess a show you're going to see a whole group of different acrobats of every different shape and size that you're going to see us come up on the stage, and you're going to have a perception of what you see on the stage. But the show's going to take you down a very different idea of what you see versus what we will do.
Okay.
Love
So
that.
you walk in, and hopefully I'll get you guys some tickets to come along. I'd
Thank
love you
you,
guys to
VIP,
be. I'd love to have you
VIP
guys at the
tickets.
show.
I'll be on stage.
Yeah, stop it. Yeah. I've torn both my biceps, and I need you to tear another one. It's going to be. It's for me personally. This is very different. Again, as we spoke last time, being from the athlete background to the performance side, there is the crossover, but I've noticed, especially training, especially for this show, learning about the exploration side of circus. So, I was told by the director of the show, Biggie, can you go over there? You've got an act in the show. Make an act.
Huh.
And I'm like, okay. And they're like, make an act on you, like on Strongman and on what we've got. And I'm like, right. So the others have gone away and they're doing their stuff, and I'm sitting there going, well, I can't pull a truck in here because it's a tent, and I can't do this because it's this. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? So the director sat down with me and chatted to me about what we think we could do, and we've come up with an idea, which I'm not going to say anything, but it's something really different, involving music, involving me. It's really, really, really out there and really different to what people would expect. You'll see me on stage doing something that I don't think most people would have expected to see, but still with a strongman flavour to it.
Ballet.
I'm thinking
Yeah,
of,
right.
Doing ballet.
And this, looking at your face, is exactly what the show is about, because I can see you guys.
Everybody's
thinking,
thinking,
yeah, and I guarantee you're all thinking something different, except
Yeah.
ballet by the sounds of it when it comes to everybody.
my moment to singing. I don't know why, but yeah.
I
Yeah.
just know. I
Yeah,
don't.
opera singing and ballet. Yeah.
Oh, I don't think so. All that comes to mind then is The Simpsons, when Homer's thinking about the ballet, and it's a little car with a bear driving around in circles, and it's like, oh, the ballet, and I can just picture myself driving around in that. But no, that's not it either. But like I said, I'd love to have you guys there, and like I said, it's a plug to the show because I'm performing with such good acrobats from around the country. Some of these performers have performed in Europe. They spend time in the schools in Europe. Wow. These guys are legit acrobatic gymnastics performers, and many times fringe performers. So for me, it's just a pleasure to be a part of the show, but to show something different in Strongman, but in circus as well.
So how did you get introduced to that world? So it is a bit of a leap. Not every strongman finds his way onto the stage in a performance capacity. So how did that opportunity emerge for you?
Well, I took it myself. I took the opportunity myself and contacted the circus school myself and said, look, I want to come and do an adults class and meet someone there. So I did an adults class, which was just beyond funny. So I've rocked up, and the way adults classes works is you go as a group. So it'd be like all of us together. A coach will come out or a trainer will come out and they'll teach you circus, but for adults. So it's not like the kids where they get you doing like hand-eye coordination stuff. They sort of lift it up to an adults thing. So they're trying to teach us juggling, Diablo, all these other different kinds of things.
Did you get stilts?
No, because I would snap those things. They're still sort of just been flat on the ground, right? But
This is really easy.
they just teach us like all the random stuff, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh, this is so not what I'm looking for." They even got me into a handstand, which was just, that's everyone's response too. Don't worry. But and I've sat down with the trainer after and said, "Look, this is who I am. This is sort of my resume. This is what I've done for the last, 15 years of my life, and this is what I want to do." And he's just pissed himself laughing and goes, "Oh, well, that makes perfect sense." because because we sat down and had a coffee, and a few days later he's going, yeah, it was a bit weird seeing you come into the class, but you know, because he's like, did somebody because their initial thought was that somebody had dared me to do it, that I was just there for that. But you know, I sat down with the guy's name's Jono, and he's actually the director of the show I'm in, and he's been so helpful. And so, because I sat down going, okay, there's multiple types of circus, which I didn't understand either. There's traditional circus, which is the things you see on TV, trick ta-da, trick ta-da, trick ta-da, da-da-da, trick ta-da, lions, tigers, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got contemporary circus. Gravity and Other Myths is a real big one here in South Australia. They're basically the biggest one here. Cirque Oz, your big ones overseas. You know, they're your contemporary circus, where it's not just trick. It's, you know, feel and flow and show and then trick because of this reason, because of this part of the show. You know, the tricks are done in a way that it tells a story, right? So that's more contemporary circus, which is kind of what I'm getting into, but not really what I was expecting to get into, and not really my thing either. Like, as I get back to saying before, sitting down and like, I could put you guys on the spot and just say to you guys, what would you do if I said to you, go sit in the corner and make an act?
Yes.
It's like 100%. Like, if I said turn around and make an act,
Matt would probably grab this. Now, Matt, I'm keen to hear as well. Tell us.
Make an act on arm wrestling. Like, it doesn't have to. You sort of sit there and go, okay.
You know, the first thing that popped into my head just then was the bear and the little car going.
That's funny.
And then you just turn around and go, well, what would you do for one if I turned around and said you have to do one on, you know, ring announcing?
Yeah.
Make an act on ring announcing. How would you make an act to show the crowd that you're a ring announcer? What would you do? Or the same with you. If I said, okay, we're going to make a scene where it's like you have to project yourself to the crowd in a way that they'll understand without you talking in a way that you fight or that you do this, that, and the other.
Interpretive dance.
And
That's what I would do. I would do an interpretive dance.
I'd do jazz ballet interpretation if I could. But
I'd get Biggie to come and throw me up and catch me with the trampoline. That'd fun to do.
Just punch everyone in the audience.
And then
There
I'd
you
punch
go.
everybody.
Just go around and one by one knock out the whole crowd.
So then they wake up and it's like an epiphany.
And they go, hey.
I'd be like, this is what I'm about, inspiring people through movement.
Was it good? I don't remember. Something happened. Why is my face there? You're amazing, Isabella.
I can just imagine they'd be getting 5-star ratings from everyone in the show. For sure. The judges would come in.
Because you'd be standing over and 5 stars. 5 stars. Oh, that's awesome. When does the Fringe start? Is it March this year?
February.
Oh, it's okay. Next month, yeah.
It's quick. We've got 5 weeks left of training. We trained this afternoon. First session's back since pre-Christmas. It's getting to the pointy end.
how much preparation it goes into? Like, when did you know this was coming up?
We have been planning since mid last year.
Okay.
But the hard thing is, with the world being the way it is, getting the acrobats for the right part of the show, but also making sure they stay here and and that's another big thing too. Like, but we've got other acrobats that might need to travel with another circus. There's no reason why. Again, circus in the sense is a lot like strongman, that a promoter or a director. So in strongman, promoters will invite you to do a competition. Directors of circus shows will see you and go, that person will be perfect for this part of my show. Will you come do this part of my show? There might be an injury in the show, so they need you. So you can lose acrobats like that because they need them in other shows.
Yeah.
So you've got to try and find the cast that suits it. Then you've got to try and work out, again, it's unlike traditional circus where it's just trick. There's a story behind the show. The show's going to be set out in such a way that, the people in the crowd who are, I guess, your average punters who are just there to see a show can understand it.
Yeah.
But then then I guess your artsy type people have their aspect of it too. And they're obviously, they obviously want to show that they can relate to and stuff like that versus your average punter that comes in 10 beers deep and just wants you to see someone and throw them through the roof. Yeah. So you've got to try and, exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, or just jab everyone in the crowd.
So, that's right.
It's just one of those things where you've got to try and make it flow. And again, there's so much.
So it's got to really have layers to. It's got to have levels to be able to appeal to that very disparate grouping of people that might be turning up
100%, and then
any given night.
And you've got to show the people what you're trying to do. If they come in and see a show and they don't understand what the fuck's going on the whole time, it's a pretty pointless show then, right?
Yeah.
So as performers, you've got to sit there and work out how does, say, Matt's act flow into mine, that flows into Izzy's, that flows into yours. How do we make a show that flows into each other? Because again, these are all things that I've learned that I just never thought I'd learn, is that you don't have a dead stage. You don't have a stage with nothing on it, because that is just the worst thing you can do. So then you've got to try and work out a way.
You can open your mouth if you want to.
You've somehow got to work out a way where you go from Matt to me without nothing happening, right? Like, or it's just that's what you need to do. Every act to act is just over the.
I'm going to do that as my act.
Oh, there you go. Now you've worked out exactly what you have to do.
That's it.
I'm picturing Matt with kind of tinsel and feather bows, being like.
Just a little,
Like neon lighting.
So I can see there's going to be a Fringe act next year just based off of you.
Daily combat.
That's
Fringe
right.
show.
Daily combat.
I think we could do.
I think you. I would come watch every night just to see the difference between each one.
Just a boo and heckle.
I tell you what, though, talking about funny shows, and I wish that COVID hadn't ruined it for everyone. There's a show that used to come to Fringe, and the first show I did a Fringe show, it was Drunk Shakespeare. Have you guys ever heard of it before?
I think I have.
Yeah,
I've heard of it, not seen it.
It is amazing. So it's a Shakespeare show. Guys from England, proper, studied theatrical guys, proper studied at Oxford type stuff. So the goal of the show is one of the actors gets smashed as before the show, proper smashed as, and the guys in the crowd have to pick who the smashed one is, but they have to do the whole show normally with one actor or one performer fuck-eyed. And I mean proper, out of it.
The
and
English drink. When they drink,
I went to the show 5 times because it's a different person drunk each time. It's not the same one.
Oh.
So the king might be smashed as, the queen might be smashed as.
Wow.
You walk in and it is just hilarious because you sit up on stage and you're like, oh yeah, sober, and this dude just slants onto the stage. You're like, oh my God, that guy's paro. And you'll see everyone will be talking normally and he'll just come out and just and then they give out a gong into the crowd, so when you think the guy isn't drunk enough, you hit the gong and they make him scull more booze on stage.
Wow.
Oh yeah, if it comes back to Adelaide, everyone that listens to this and you three, go see it. Go see it every night at the Fringe because it just is hilarious. The guys do, but also you can see if you go back-to-back nights, you can see the guy who was drunk the night before because they're on stage hating because you see them. You see one guy on stage, he's just flat, and you're like, oh man, you got blind last night. Yeah, it's great.
Wow.
And that's what I mean. So many of these Fringe shows you don't know about that are hilarious because everyone goes to see the big shows, comedy acts from overseas, your big shows and stuff like that. That's who you go see. But there's some little acts, and I don't know if you guys have ever gone to the Midnight Cabaret. Do that one.
I can't be out past midnight. So
turn into a pumpkin or something like that.
It's a curfew. It's
I turn into Mike Tyson.
So your Fringe show's going to start after midnight every night, right? It's a cabaret show where they just get people from all these shows to do their own, acts in the show. And there's one very famous female performer who gets a popcorn machine and it's up inside of it.
oh God.
A whole popcorn machine, because that's
Wow.
pretty large.
Wow.
No, I'm thinking about a machine that's like this big.
I'm thinking the cinemas.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's not a cinema one. Yeah, There's a whole lot going on that stage.
She must.
I haven't seen it personally. Thank God. But every person that I talk to about it, she's really famous.
Oh, right.
Everyone,
Just for any sponsors that might be watching, Biggie
Yeah.
has not seen it personally.
Right.
This
No.
is just anecdotal.
Yeah.
He's read the
he
review.
May or may not have happened.
says, I just had this real hankering for popcorn after the show, and I don't know why. But it was just unbelievable what I've been told, that you just see some random ass acts of just, like I said, it's one of those things where if it was me and you're like a newbie to this type of stuff, just go see random shows.
Yeah.
So is this what attracted you to circus?
My love of popcorn.
Yeah, where's the popcorn machine?
I can't wait to see Hayes at the next one and see what they do.
Oh man.
Sounds so painful. I just.
So you mentioned that you got there and you had an idea when you began on this this performance journey, the strongman performance journey, that you had an idea as to what it is that you wanted to do. What did you have in mind? Did you have that traditional strongman?
Yeah,
I'm going to be picking up weights. They're going to have round ends.
Yeah.
With balloons. Yeah.
With balloons at the end. Yeah,
1,000 tons each. I had an image traditional circus, traditional strongman circus, where it's perform a feat of strength in front of a crowd. The crowd goes bananas because you do this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah.
Wear a moustache.
Wear a moustache.
Yeah.
Peel this one on and off whenever I can. But it's one of those things where, again, talking to guys in the Fringe, talking to that, they're the shows that don't really pull, and that's not really what the Fringe is about.
Because there's no story to it. It's
and this
just
was
a
the
bunch of
things I
feats.
had to learn. And the big thing is a lot of these shows are trying to do shows so they can tour.
Right.
Because if your show's good enough, they'll ask you to go to Melbourne Fringe or Fringe, and they'll ask you to go to Sydney Fringe, they'll ask you to go to Edinburgh Fringe, the biggest Fringe in the world. It's about touring shows. So it's all well and good to do a show here in Adelaide at the Adelaide Fringe. It's a big deal. It's massive. Second biggest Fringe in the world, biggest one in the Southern Hemisphere. But the goal of a director of a show is to take that show from here and take it to Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, wherever.
Is that also your aspiration as one of the performers?
Of course.
Be part of that?
Absolutely. I'd love to tour if I can. Again, I bring something very different to the table than a lot of other acrobats do, but there's also a lot of things I cannot do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tricks and stuff. I'm just, one, too big, two, not mobile enough. And to be honest, I'm older than most of them as well. The injuries have been there with time. So there's just a lot of things I can't do. But there's a lot of things I can do that a lot of the other guys can't do. So I try and bring a different package to the table that a lot of others can't. But again, a lot of these groups are very set in their ways, so they've got their own shows that have been very prosperous for many years, like Cirque Oz. Then you, like I said, Gravity and Other Myths, which is the one here in Adelaide. They've got their shows. They've got about 5 shows that they do constantly. They've got their guys in Europe now doing shows all around Europe already. They've got guys in Queensland doing shows. They're doing shows left, right and centre because they're so well known and they're so good at what they do. So I guess for me, could I tour a show by myself doing these types of things? No, I couldn't, because I don't think the interest would be there. There wouldn't be enough interest in that. People I know would come and see it, and then of course you'd get the people who are diehard for strongman that would come and watch it. But that's not a very big population. Like, it's just not. Like, it's a lot smaller. And again, chatting about when we were last time about the strongman guys going into fighting, the strongman guys going into movies, they understand the strongman world is so large, but there's so many more things that you can branch out of. And it's quite similar in this scene as well with myself going into it. So it's learning for me. And like I said, if I could get in a group that toured, would be the goal, because you're getting paid to tour.
Well, Biggie, I mean, you got 3 people here, so I'm just saying.
There you go. We got that.
But yeah, no, do go on.
That was already written. So.
I was about to say, it sounds like this is a 2023 goal.
We will all train up each in a circus act, and we can, create a little group. Go tour to the Edinburgh Fringe.
I'm going to be honest.
No.
You all suck.
Whatever.
I'm going to be honest. The thing I really feel
I
like...
don't like it when people say anything.
I don't like it when
I'm
people
going to be
are
honest. I prefer you not.
I'm going to tell you
Could
this.
you be polite and
You
just
guys,
leave?
I was about to say,
Leave
you
me
guys
alone.
couldn't have taken that the wrong way, anything worse. But I tell you what, the thing I've always missed out on, the one thing when I first started into strongman circus, the one thing I always missed out that I never could find was a mouthpiece to speak on my behalf. Someone very vocal,
Paul Heyman.
Because what you Paul Heyman to my Brock Lesnar or something like that, or it's one of those things where if you look into old school strongman, the strongman never spoke. He was always on stage in front of 1,000, 10,000 people. It was the mouthpiece, the dude with the top hat, the dude with the moustache. Yeah. Now you know I'm driving it. It's one of those things where that was the way I perceived it. To have someone speaking on my behalf, to do the show with someone almost telling the story with me performing it,
Are you asking Dave to do that now?
Ladies and gentlemen.
There we go. Yes. Drop it.
Presenting Australia's strongest man.
Yo. Here we go. We got Big and Smalls. He's going to lift it. Oh.
So that's the thing. Can you imagine if you just did a show with...
Whoa, look at us.
You could just do a show with different
Tickets
mouthpieces for every act.
Yeah.
So you have 5 different acts with 5 different mouthpieces, but you go, here you go. This is where the exploration side comes into it. You have an old school style for an old school style strongman event. You have a new style voice for a new style strongman event. Oh. So you go 1900 strongman, 1800 strongman, 2000 strongman,
Max
80s
style.
80s right here.
Stupid strongman.
Yeah. So this is what I mean. There's your exploration side of it. You sit there and you look at who's in the room and you go, what would make it work and how do you make it work? And just by your two voices being so different to each other but so solid in their own way, you can actually make it work.
Hey.
Instantly.
Yeah.
That's it. But it is so important with storytelling, like you were saying before. When you see an act or whatever it is that you're watching, whether it's a film or whether it's performance in some way, there's always got to be an understanding as to what message that person is putting across, whether it's a character that they're playing and I know that one of the big issues with Hollywood movies where, they spend like $300 million on a film and they're like, we want every single person that goes to see this movie to understand it. Like, we don't want to make a really complex story because we want, and I think the saying is, does Mama and Papa in South Dakota get it? Like, if they don't get it, then we're doing something wrong. So that's where you sort of get these really simplistic kind of stories. And it's like, when you're looking at the lower budget films, the 20 to 40, $50 million films is where you can find the really complex, interesting character driven stories because they're not relying on a big budget or big special effects and they can go in depth with their storyline. But what you were saying before with that, making sure that the audience sort of gets what you're saying. You've seen The Prestige with, so that was like, that just popped into my mind when you were saying that because you had the two characters there, the Hugh Jackman, who was a fantastic performer, not as skilled at the magician side of things, and then Christian Bale was playing the other magician who was really skilled but a terrible performer. So the two, when they worked together, it was a really powerful combination. But when they went out on their own, it was like you could see the contrasting styles. Hugh Jackman had the big theatrical thing, the really big voice. He could build an energy to create his performance. But then the tricks weren't as good as what Christian Bale was doing. But his tricks were just like, here's a trick. Here's another trick. Here's another trick. There was no setup. There was no delivery to build that suspense, and that's what's so important in an act.
And I feel like with what we do, it's a lot of what your perception of it is too, right? Like you might get a feel of it that's very different to how you feel and how you feel. There's an act in this show, Margot Mansfield. She's one of our acrobats. She's one that studied in Europe and stuff like that. She does an act solely with like a bed sheet. And stop it.
And a popcorn machine.
And then a popcorn machine.
1 second out here.
Salt and pepper, baby, all about it.
And you've had more scotch. Okay.
She does an act in the show, and you sit there, and we sort of went, okay. The director's like, go hard, show us what your act is, and we all sat down and watched, and I literally sat there in awe of what was going on in front of me.
I was expecting something different there.
No.
In awe.
It was just, like I said, you guys will come to the show and see it, but it's just one of those things where you watch someone so skilled at telling a story with nothing and sit there going, wow, that's just so pretty to watch. And the story is actually quite obvious, but how you perceive the story might be slightly different to how somebody else perceives it. So a lot of it is a perception from the crowd's point of view, but also how you provide it to them.
Exactly, that's right. And you see the great performers that say Penn and Teller, and Teller said that he decided that he would be silent on stage because he wanted the performance to be told through what he was doing physically. And he always hated that idea of, the magician would come out, so this theatre back in 1870, it's like, just that fluff crap that he's like, no, just the story is what's important. Don't waste your time with unneeded words or dialogue that's not necessary. Restrict yourself, make it more about the actual performance. So that's why he was like, okay, I'm not going to talk. And then, when he does his duo stuff, obviously Penn does all the talking, but there's a couple of acts like that. If you saw that Tape Face guy who was on America's Got Talent.
Heard about this,
yeah. So he's a New Zealand street performer, and he deliberately put tape on his mouth to stop himself from talking, because he would start doing an act and then he'd be miming again. There's a lot of audience interaction. He's trying to get people on stage, and then he would finally he would just say something and no, just can you do, and so he had to actually get tape and tape his mouth shut so that he wouldn't give up the mime side of it, which he sort of forced himself in that position as to, I can't speak, so I have to now come up with a way to get this person to do what I want to do. And it's a comedy sort of thing where it's like he's trying to explain, do this thing, and they're not getting it, and he's making it funny, and but it was an interesting aspect to it. It's like if you've deliberately handicapped yourself to make your performance better. And it's like you're not relying on, if I can't speak, or say I can't move, or if I can't do these things, it's like, well, how do I get around it? And that's, again, with the film industry where you've got a lower budget, and it's like, well, we can't rely on CGI. We can't rely on, so we need to rely on narrative. We need to have a really good story to figure out this issue. We can't just go, just put a green screen in front of it and aliens blow it up. I don't know. It's all about that story side of it.
And it's funny because that's a lot of the behind the scenes stuff we do with training. And learning that type of stuff from behind the scenes is you sort of do all these weird ass sort of tricks behind the scenes where you're told the director of the show will put you all together and it'll be like, all right, walk around in circles and give each other a cue to do something. So you just walk around and then he'll give you a cue to do something. You have to do something. So
can we do that with Matt right now?
Yeah, get out.
I don't. The cue is piss off. It's bring it down. It's the same type of thing, and like you said with movies and stuff like that.
Get the popcorn machine.
Next time I do this, I'm bringing a popcorn machine with me. Absolutely.
I'm already having graphic images.
I can already smell butter.
I'm ashamed.
That's gold. Yeah, again, with film industry and stuff like that, you think about some of the great actors and actresses through the times. You think guys who are from different generations too, who have come through to be so much better than what they were because of all these different reasons. Why? I'd say,
Matt, Hollywood.
Yeah, all of my unknown films that no one will ever see. I'm just gonna stay that way.
Your name is on there at some point. So that's all that matters. You'll be next to the greats: Al Pacino, Matt Hollywood.
Everyone will go, who is
Matt
that?
Damon.
Yeah, that's right.
Matt
Maybe the same guy.
wait, Ben, sorry.
Ben Affleck.
Exactly. Yeah, well, they're greats. Yeah, they're greats. Absolutely.
The standard is just getting higher and higher, Matt. But it's just one of those. It's one of those things where I'm actually almost tempted
Which is
to
bad for you.
I actually, you know what? With everything Matt's done now, I actually want to just run you through like a circus day. I reckon.
Yeah.
I've actually.
I can see you juggling.
I've done a lot of
Can
circus
you?
stuff.
A gymnast.
I actually have done a lot of circus stuff.
And that's what I want to see now because it makes perfect sense that you've gone into videos. Can you juggle?
I can, yeah.
Can you?
Diablo, yes.
Can you Diablo?
Yeah,
well?
Oh, not well. No, it's tricky.
Because I love Diablo. It's
crazy.
It's just funny to see someone good with the Diablo as well.
You know what?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I'm thinking about that game.
I was thinking about a Lamborghini.
Oh, if you were good with one of them.
That Biggie was talking about before, we all have different ideas of what Biggie's doing in his act. We all have different ideas.
Diablo.
Of what Diablo.
It's a car.
It's a car. It's
a PC game.
I'll let you explain that one, Matt, what a Diablo is.
What's Matt's interpretation?
It's essentially two sticks and a string.
That
And then you've
Diablo.
got the like a
well-versed in
wooden
this
sort of
Diablo.
thing that balances on the string, and you're using the sticks to balance it, and then you
Right.
can flip it and do tricks and all sorts of things, and hit yourself in the face.
It's like a
with it.
giant yo-yo with two sticks and a large.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like a crowd fuller.
Oh yeah. Oh, the kids love it.
Kids' party think it's the best.
That's like the yo-yo is like the worst toy for a kid because they go and it just goes hanging down, and they're like, oh, and then they give it to you, and you got to wind it all back up again, give it back to them, and they go, oh.
What do you mean? What do you mean as a kid, mate? I still fucking do that now.
Yeah.
So, have you given any thought to what might be a show? Like, is all of this kind of exploring and understanding how these shows are put together, informing you as to how you may put together a show loosely based around strongman?
Yeah, I have. It's just a lot of time and effort to go into it. So with all the coaching I do, it's probably just a little bit hard for me at the moment to settle down and do it. That might be a goal for 2023 is to sit down and actually prep a full strongman show.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully handling it better than him handling that drink as well.
Supposed to be in your peripheral.
I've still got my security license here, sir. Could you leave the venue?
I've got a security license too.
Yeah, that's it. Not anymore. Out. But, 2023, we'll just see how things go. And as it gets closer, again, just working on making sure I can just keep myself in shape without falling apart more than anything else. The older I get, the more injuries I seem to mount up.
Last time we did a strongman versus arm wrestling event, and we went to your one of your sort of
Seoul,
coaching, in the city, and it was great. We had a great time. A lot of the guys that were your sort of students had a go at arm wrestling, and some of our guys had some goes at the stone lifting and that sort of thing.
And
a lot
everybody's
of fun.
still recovering.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a lot of skin is still missing from their arm, but you had the torn bicep at that time.
I'm going to be honest, it wasn't actually too long after we had our first podcast.
Right.
I was probably not that long out of hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I was quite back from the surgery because it's only sort of been maybe coming up on a year in March since the second bicep.
And somebody fell on your arm, is that right?
Yeah, we were...
Someone was just walking past.
Yeah.
Jordan was juggling.
Fell on
There was a lady with a popcorn machine and she was feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, I had a popcorn machine thrown at my bicep. It was
ejected from
the nether regions.
Hey.
The Lord of the Rings threw
the
it at me.
subcockle region of an Adelaide Fringe Show.
I've got to edit this show,
I can't wait to hear every bit of this. But it was literally, I tell you what, the person that fell on my arm, and I love her to pieces. She's such a sweet girl and she's
That's why you didn't kill her.
Yeah.
No. Well, she's actually dating one of my best mates, which was even
Which
worse.
was another reason why.
Yeah, totally. No, she's so sweet. She's an awesome gymnast. But we were just training, and so she was standing 2 feet in one arm, and we're just holding.
It doesn't sound dangerous.
Yeah, no, right. And she sort of tipped one way, and I knew she had a bad ankle. She'd hurt her ankle doing cheerleading probably about 5 years ago, so she had quite a bad injury with all the torn ligaments, and she's tipped. So I've gone to reach out to catch her. But of course, because Mom's pinned on the ground, I've gone to catch, but she's caught herself and fallen and sort of jumped onto this part of my arm and trying to catch someone like this with somebody jumping here.
Yes.
It's a lot of force going through. I felt a pop. She heard it. And
you heard it right there and then?
Yeah, because the first bicep I didn't hear. This one I heard and felt. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's gone. So, look, it was just one of those things. Like, she could have fallen any other way and it wouldn't have made a difference. She could have come down straight on top of me, which would have been fine. It's just, it happens. And I've done one, so I knew what the recovery was going to be like. I knew how to recover. I knew how to rebuild. And this one's come back very good. Actually, probably come back better than the left one.
And importantly, for the sake of performance performance, the moustache was fine.
Yeah, absolutely. No moustaches were hurt in this act.
That's good.
You know, so it was just one of those things. But like I said, we've all been there where you do something and you go, oh my God, that could have just been either so much worse, or God, if I just took a step to the left, that wouldn't have happened.
It's funny though, because you had your arm in a sling when we're doing the arm wrestling and strongman thing. Everyone that came in saw you in a sling and you're like, oh, did you just break your arm?
Yeah. all the people from the gym are like, oh my God. I'm like, no.
Not related.
Or like, was it you and one of the other guys? Do you want to arm wrestle? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, sure.
I'd love to just have my arm snapped off again.
I don't need the other one.
Yeah, it's fine. Kick a man while he's down. That's the ticket.
Sure, absolutely.
But it was a lot of fun that day. The strongman guys loved it. You know, it's such a different world for them to try as well. You know, it's also really cool because it's a learning curve, but it's also a way to cool their jets a little bit, right? Like it's also a really cool way to bring people back down again and go, look, understanding that, yeah, okay, you're a strongman, but it doesn't mean you're going to be good at everything. A lot of guys have this inflated ego from strongman, but I'm going to be honest, I think a lot of people have inflated egos in their own areas, right? Like someone's going to think they're really good because they can do this, that, and the other, and they can do this, that, and the other. It's nice to see them, humbled a little bit in a way, but also in a way that they learn as well, right? So it's the guys went through and helped all the strongman guys, teaching them tricks, teaching them, you can't do this because of this and this, that, and the other. You're plenty strong. Just get your hand like this, blah, 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 blah. It was so cool to sit back and watch. And then when it switched and the guys came out and did some stones and stuff like that, the strongman guys just teaching them where to hold the stones, how to do this, how to do that, positions and stuff like that. There's obviously a level of technique to everything we do. So it was really cool to see the camaraderie between the two groups. And I feel like there's just so much either way. Like it's like the coaching system, the college system in the US. You go to the US, you play gridiron, you do wrestling. You do wrestling, you play gridiron. That's the way it works. You do one, you do the other because it helps the other one out. You do athletics, you go into the gym and you train weights because it's going to help your athletics. You sprint if you do shot put because power training is what you need. It's a similar type of thing, and I feel like we lose that in our system here because
absolutely
we go so far towards AFL and tennis and everything, we lose sight of things to help the other one out. I remember it was funny because we were chatting, a few of my athletes and myself, about what got us started into strength sports. So I guess a lot of the other guys, Luke, my mate from Sydney, was elite rugby. A few of the other guys were, one guy was basketball. A few of the other guys were just gym guys. But my background was wrestling, amateur wrestling at Flinders Uni when I was a kid. So I remember at school, this was before MMA was cool and before everyone did it and all that type of stuff, wearing the spandex, the red and the blue, for the red corner and the blue corner. So I remember being in school and like kids were like, what the fuck are you doing wrestling for? What the...
It's not wrestling, it's performance.
Yeah, right, it's performing arts. And you're sitting there.
A moustache.
I was about to say, in high school, don't worry, mate, I didn't have a moustache, just a full beard down to here. But it was just, kids just didn't understand it back then. Like wrestling was fighting back then, and that was what started me off. And, I was only just very lucky because one of the guys a few years above me at school was state champ, national champ, and Oceania champ. So he was my inlet into wrestling. And that was my training for 5 years. So it was one of those things where I felt like it was just, we miss out on these opportunities where, like, if I did wrestling, I should be playing AFL, right? Because wrestling's going to teach me how to tackle better. And why wouldn't I do sprinting at athletics? Because sprinting is going to be good for wrestling because it's going to be good for power. Why don't all the AFL guys do sprinting at school? Why don't they do these crossovers between sports? They just don't do that here. Why is there not weightlifting for every sport that involves some level of strength? Athletics, shot put, discus, javelin, high jump. Why aren't they doing power cleans all the time? Yeah. I do understand now, working with certain people from certain sports, physios and stuff like that, they are along the ideas of limiting injury So a
Yeah,
lot of the
that's-
physios I talk to that work with the Lightning Girls or the 36ers or the Crows or whoever, they tend not to do certain type of exercises anymore because the chance of injury goes up. They try not to do regular deadlift as much anymore. They try
I've not been doing that for 2-3 years.
trap bar. That's right. Trap bar deadlift safer because you stand inside of the weight. The weight's on either side, not in front. Means the likelihood of getting injured is less. Bench press isn't such a big thing in AFL and rugby anymore. I remember years ago playing rugby. If you wanted to prop for Australia, you have to bench 200. Like that's what the standard was. Now they can give a rat's ass what you bench. They just want a percentage of your bench press with power. So they'll work out what that percentage is. They'll go, okay, you're probably good for a 1 RM of 200, but we want you at this weight doing this percentage of output. So there is a level of finding that right groove between the two. But like I said, for basketball players and stuff like that, they might not do power cleans all the way up anymore, but they're still doing clean high pulls and stuff like that, which is what weightlifting should be taught at schools for athletes in multiple sports, not just...
Listen to this man.
and that's just the American training system, but why the American system is so good, why they win Olympics a lot. But it's not too dissimilar to Russian system and European system either. All this, like I said, you go to any big college in any place in the US, grade 1 through 7 or whatever you want to call it, their facilities are better than any of our AFL facilities, better than anywhere.
We've got.
I'm glad I've.
Damn right.
A very big supporter of that proponent over here.
This is what I've been saying. And also, I think Australia has a habit of putting everyone and everything, if possible, in boxes.
Right.
And I think in terms of sports, like, yes, when I was doing canoeing at that level in an institution as opposed to independently, anything else I did, and after hearing this story recently about Harley Ballick, and reading JMO, I've got to talk about him later. His words on it is that I would do anything that I thought was going to make me better at canoeing. Right, anything. I was doing anything possible, and it was always frowned upon because I thought to myself, why aren't I doing a sprint training? Why aren't I doing a sort of like CrossFit style training? Because this is what's going to help me develop my power and my speed. And that was constantly, no, nothing outside of the box was even considered. There wasn't even an opportunity to discuss a different idea. And I definitely agree with absolutely everything, pretty much, as you could tell. But I think it's it's almost like an Australian culture in a way to put those things in a box and not to progress. There's so much room.
It's definitely an Adelaide thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much room. There's so much potential that I think that is untapped in Australia.
Do you think that's in some part because our big sports, cricket, football, we don't actually play against the best of the world. We play against the best in maybe 4 countries in the world that have a capacity to maybe compete against us.
That's a very good point.
And so this idea of crossing over is not explored because it's not required for the high level of performance in those specific fields. Whereas in, say, canoeing and those international sports, powerlifting, you need that crossover. You need some kind of...
I will say, like, just quickly, just like the Europeans and some of the North Americans have a really good grasp on that. So, for example, something they do which we don't is Australians will tend to go overseas to train in summer. Say, so let's say we'll be training here and we'll be drinking scotch, and then we'll go over there. But whereas, so I'll give you an example for European Polish canoeists, they'll train here. And sorry about that. By here, I mean they'll be training in Poland. They'll be doing canoeing in summer, and they'll do cross-country skiing in winter. Less injury risk because you're doing something different. You're still doing the high intensity that you would be doing on the water. You're doing it on the snow. You're developing different muscles, and I think in a way that even with my coaching background and a bit in med and all that, like I think it's good to have the variation. Specialization can cause injury. I mean, we know that for a fact. Early specialization in some sports increases injury risk for the youth involved. But my interest would be, does that happen as well when we're a bit older?
You once discussed the dysmorphia of as a result of canoeing, where you develop hugely.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
On one side of the
Yeah,
body.
yeah, that's
and
right.
so
I'm lopsided. I'm
from
still
doing this.
lopsided.
You're still lopsided.
Yeah, my
That's
shoulder's
fine.
been an issue from it.
Jeez.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
reckon that's from.
And there's your specialised, what you're talking about, dealing with the specialised on one side of your body constantly and that being just drilled into you. It's funny you say that. It's such a huge thing. Even in strongman, the Icelandic guys in the 80s and 90s used to talk about it, is that in Iceland it's dark in wintertime, like 20 hours of the day, and they get like 4 hours of light. That's it. So in the wintertime, they train powerlifting. In the summertime, they train strongman because they can't go outside and train strongman in wintertime because it's just impossible. Like, they might go and lift a stone, but that's all they could do. So yeah, one season is they do one part, and the next season they come and do another part. You know, it's talking about breaking the shackles of being just so. It's kind of no different to how we are as a nation. We're an island miles away from everybody else, and we sort of keep to ourselves in that sense. It's kind of like we've almost done that in a way of sport, in that we have so much talent. In my opinion, we are the most talented country in the world per capita for sport. We have just such a broad range of people we can pick from all nationalities, ethnicities, the indigenous, all the way through. We have the best athletes in the world for any sport. Without a doubt, we should be strength sports. We should be with just, again, our multiculturalism from Europe, from Scandinavia, with such a melting pot of people from Asia and other parts of Europe and America. And like I said, add the indigenous people in as well that have just got skills, hand-eye coordination, speed that none of us could ever just get in general. Like I said, there's just no reason why. I've heard stories from athletics coaches that have had like people from, just out in the communities and stuff like that, indigenous communities, come into the city, do high jump, flog every record that's set, and then just go back out and don't do it anymore. That's who we should be harnessing. That's the culture we should be building to go forward. Take advice from other places around the world who are successful in what they do, and take the people that we have, because like I said, we have beyond talent here that we should be using and harnessing, not just for AFL, not just for TV rights, not just for this, that, and the other, but opening the door, which is, again, it's a hard thing too. Like, money rules everything around me, right? So that's the hard thing too. Channel 7, Channel 9, whatever. The
Channel
big
7.
Your favourite. And they're the big things that rule everything. If they're not going to make a profit off of it, why would they really back it in? But I think it takes someone with guts, determination, balls to just turn around and go, you know what, this is the way we're going to do it. And the cream rises to the top. People will take notice. It just takes time and effort. And just a strong willpower.
I just love the fact that there is the opportunity to create your own avenues now with the internet, with the ability to put your own content on YouTube. Like, that's what we're doing with our arm wrestling stuff. And it's sort of like, people are turning up to the club that have watched our videos, know all of us, and I have, know our nicknames.
Hollywood.
There you go. That's right. And they go, what? But that, in terms of strongman and all these niche sort of sports that have always been there and have this rich cultural history and these backgrounds and these stories that have just never been told because, the major networks have just gone, well, we're not going to profit off of that. So, we're not going to highlight it. And the Olympics is a classic example, because every time you watch the Olympics, it's always the swimming, and then it's like 5 seconds of another sport and back to swimming. And then it's like when the swimming finally finishes after like 11 days, then it's all track and field. And it's like, well, is there anything else happening? There's like 100 sports going on, but they'll show you one little snippet of
the highlight of the finish.
And by the way, you'll never see those sports ever again on network. You're not seeing any. You're not seeing any track and field. You're not seeing any javelin. You're not seeing any 100-meter sprints. In an off-Olympic year on any of these commercial networks. They don't support sport at a grassroots level. They support what they think eyeballs want to be on.
Exactly.
But they do in America and Europe.
Absolutely. You go to Europe and you go there.
I should be Prime Minister for a day. Sports Minister for a day.
You can watch Diamond League, which is the athletics league over there. You go watch shot put, outdoor shot, right? They'll do it in the middle of like... so sometimes they're outdoor. They'll actually put it in the middle of like a street setting. So they'll set up a shot put they can do it in like the middle of Rundle Mall. So they can set up the V put the ring and, set it up that the crowd watches from the outside because it's outdoor. Throw a shot outdoor anywhere, right? As long as there's a ring, and Diamond League will show and will be on Fox. And that happens all year round. Diamond League's held all over Europe. Why wouldn't you show that? Why wouldn't you show nationals here? Why wouldn't you show Australian championships or anything like that? Why wouldn't you try, they talk about, I remember years and years and years ago, can you remember when digital television was starting to take over and they bought out, was it Channel 10 had this, I forget, was it like 10 Mate or one of those things where it was just sport 24/7 on that channel, and that channel died out after a while. It's just gone to normal television.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you start putting that type of stuff on that channel?
They put just like motorsport. It was really boring.
Yeah, it was
they were
like
just putting
12
like
hours
stuff
of
that
that.
you'd never wanted to watch on
100%.
there.
So
Cricket.
It's like the greatest hits from the 70s cricket, and you're like, why? You've got so many sports going on right now.
Yeah, true. They only ever show, even like when if I ever see Fox Sports on, I'll be like, oh, Sports Channel, woo! And then it's like old flashbacks of AFL, old highlights of cricket. And I'm like, but there is a market. There's undeniably a market for other things. And also, let's talk about, like, for example, arm wrestling or strongman. Like strongman, sorry. Or strongmen, if there's more than one strongman.
There's only one strong man.
And, like, those things would be so visually interesting. Like, I'm already imagining, like, when you're talking about, like, the YouTube, like your YouTube channel with the arm wrestling, like, imagine that as a television series, following the arm wrestlers, like, interstate competitions, blah, blah, blah. That sort of thing is interesting. Like, the success of the Diamondback, the
Fighting championship.
Apex Festival was, we had all these different sports, which was awesome. And there were so many people there. There was a crowd just to watch, not even just to participate, but to watch.
Well, there's a lot of crossover appeal, and not only that, commercial crossover appeal, but moreover, the skill sets cross over really nicely. So, you could see the arm wrestlers were interested in what the strongmen were doing, and the strongmen were keeping an eye on what the Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys were doing, and those everybody went to the ring in the cage at the end of the night to see what those guys were doing, because everybody's interested, and probably the meta idea there is everybody's interested in getting stronger and better. And in whatever their chosen sport is. And that was the one thing that's really shared amongst all of those things. Not only that, and really cool to watch, when presented really well, all of those. And I think that's probably it for commercial appeal, and to retain the attention of people. You can't just have reruns of the 1987 grand final, and naturally expect people are going to watch. But you've got to put on a spectacle. You've got to put on a show, and that's why it's so interesting that you've kind of identified, as maybe even subconsciously, that putting on a show is more important than necessarily winning a medal or getting an award or an accolade. That's really where the attention, the accolades, and the future lies. Especially when maybe the physicality isn't what at a world-class level. You can continue to do what you're doing in performance arts now for another 30 years,
And look, and saying about the big networks and stuff like that is what we were just talking about. It is interesting you guys bring that up, because it was in the 90s they had the Weet-Bix series here in Australia, and David Huxley and Harry Mitchell were the two guys that started that. So Weet-Bix Strongman series was held at the Royal Sydney Show in Easter time every year. They had a massive budget. They got the guys to come over from Europe and everything like that. But the way this started out was, it's a really funny story. So David and Harry, very much like yourself, he was our MC for all the shows. Every Tartan Warriors show, Harry was our MC. Singer, beautiful voice, just radio announcer himself. He was just lovely to listen to, talk, and could talk. And David was the strongman who was, very well spoken, athletic background. I think it was javelin and discus in Europe. They went to Packer at the time. So everyone obviously knows Old Man Packer, big dude, money to just burn left, right, and centre. They've gone to him and said, look, we want to do a series at the Sydney show with this backing of Weet-Bix, and we want your television show too.
Did you say Weet-Bix?
Yeah.
Let's get it happening, boys.
That was literally almost how it went. He sat down, smoking, everything like that. Our TV ratings are this much. You have 2 weeks to get the TV ratings to this much, or I'm cancelling it. Thank you very much. And they're like, okay. and they've walked out, and they gave him Darryl Eastlake as their
Big
team.
Darryl Eastlake.
I think I'm having a heart attack. You know, he was doing their television side of things. So they gave it, and I think they were running it like a 7.2. The first week of the Strongman Show went at 8.5.
Wow.
And ran mid eights their whole way through until it was finished in the early 90s. So their budget was huge. They had like a multi-million-dollar budget. They'd fly the guys over from Europe, 5-star hotels here, whatever they wanted, bust them around Sydney. That's where the record breakers started here in Australia, was with the Wheat Big series. They went out, they pulled the trains, they went out to the mining and they pulled a mining truck. They pulled
I would love to do this.
Yeah, they did
So cool.
everything that I've done or wanted to do has already been done by these guys, right? Like they already did everything before I even had a thought of doing it. Well, you've got to get a big keg and do it. You know, they pulled a B double across Sydney Harbour Bridge. They've done like anything you can think of is what they've already done. So it just took two guys that just had the balls to sit down and go, you know what, we're going to put the offer on the table. They would have come with a very big, you know, write-up of this is what we want to do and this is what we need, and just go out and do it. And then, you know, the chips are going to fall one way or another, yes or no.
So
it happens.
So is
that how it
It just depends what type of chips are. Too,
Let you know if they're Pringles. I'm going to stay in the
So is that how
or casino chips, whatever.
Yeah, I think it does relate to casino chips, but yeah.
So all those years ago, is that how it began for you as a young man over your bowl of Wheat Bix, watching the telly in the morning, seeing
Eating the Wheat Bix, maybe.
in the Wheat Bix, watching the Strongman, thinking they could be me one day.
in that voice.
Just got
Yeah.
to
I had the Kerry Packer voice. That could be me one day.
just got to get the moustache happening.
Yeah, at 6 years old, I was putting it up on each side. You know what? I
I
don't
imagine that's how you spoke at 6 years old as well.
Terrible smoker's cough. I reckon I remember watching Strongmen in the early 2000s on Channel 9.
Wide World of Sport.
Yeah, Wide World of Sports. That's when I kind of remember it.
Wide World of Sport.
That's just 12th man every bit of that right there.
$5 cold hard cash. Don't get me started.
And where's Wide World of Sports? Where's that type of stuff on
exactly,
television?
yeah.
That's just what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
There was so many
Nobody
different
wants
things
to
on there.
host a TV program for 9 hours. That's what it comes down to.
Ray Martin will
Ian
do it.
Chappell had to retire.
I was going to say,
died.
who do you get to take over those roles? Who takes Ray Martin's role now?
Oh, what's his name?
Who on television could do a Ray Martin?
Eddie, what's his name? Who hosts everything on
Eddie
Channel
Maguire.
9. Maguire, there you
I
go.
don't know.
Yeah.
He's off saying stupid shit,
Yeah,
so I don't
so
think
he's
he's
been
going to get
saying
it
some
anymore.
naughty
Oh, is he?
things, Eddie.
I haven't been
Yeah, or
following
he's
it.
been in trouble,
Oh, is
or
he?
he's been cancelled a few times. He said some naughty things.
Oh, did he?
I feel like he's not the type of man to do that stuff anymore. I feel like there's got to be a next generation of
He's
person.
playing,
Yeah, there's got to be another one.
Maybe someone with a
Humphrey
filmography
Bevere
background or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
You know,
I
like-
could do 9 hours of all
Yeah.
sorts of Icelandic sports. And why are the
Does
Europeans...
he even know what Wide World of Sports was?
Yeah, Channel 9, wasn't it?
Channel
Yeah.
9.
Yeah,
Channel 9.
I don't know the logo.
Yeah, it was on whenever the cricket wasn't on.
Yeah.
I think I watched some boxing, some old boxing.
Yeah, that'd be right.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah.
like what Costa Zoods days and stuff
Yeah, no,
like that.
I've
Jeff Fennick.
watched
Jeff Fennick.
replays.
Yeah.
I've been
Jeff
filming
Fennick.
replays
You watched
of
the
that
Jeff
to
Fennick
watch.
rematch from 3 months earlier like it would just happened.
Yeah. They put wrestling, like American wrestling on there and everything.
Darryl
yeah.
Eastlake would be excited.
Yeah, he was very red as a tomato.
Again, in my mind, I've just got 12th man pops going on.
Yeah,
in my head there.
I've got like 50 of those crazy
So
names like ready to go. Yeah. Yes, but why?
But I think podcasting may have filled that vacuum.
Okay. Yeah. We should start a podcast.
Before now.
We should do a
Today.
podcast.
Yeah, we should do. That would be a good
Like a
idea.
daily
A
one.
podcast on what,
daily.
Channel 9? Or
We could do it daily, but do it once a week.
just get 6 months of them done in one day and then just spread them out over a period of time.
We've got 14 episodes out of this.
Yeah, that's right. Why is the Icelandic and the Europeans dominant forces in strongman? Is it cultural?
Yes.
Genetically superior?
Yes.
Is it what they eat?
Is it Weet-Bix?
Is it Weet-Bix? And we
Is it
should
Weet-Bix?
dominate them. They are tougher. They are harder than we are.
Why? Why is
They're
this?
like-
Oh,
they're-
this is-
Because they have to live, because we merely adopted the dark, but they were definitely born.
I put that in so many of my Instagram videos. That song, I love that. Honestly, you put it like this, plain and
I've been
simple.
here all
Yeah, that's all right. No, that's great.
You go through World War One, you go through World War Two.
They didn't in Iceland. They didn't do much up there. What was going on?
It's too cold.
I was about to say, then it was cold as buggery for the rest of the time. Look, let's be honest. People in Europe went through 2 world wars. They dealt with things a lot tougher than we did.
Yeah,
Like,
but
not
Italians
so-
did as well, and Italians aren't featuring very well in strongman.
But we did win the 100-meter men's sprint
Yeah, I was about
at
to
the
say,
Tokyo
let-
Olympics, and I'm so proud.
Let's not forget where
Italian won the running contest.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
the most
you know
famous
what?
running contest in the world, unfortunately.
My favourite thing, no, I got to say this, my favourite thing. So I got adopted by a beautiful Kiwi family when I was in New Zealand on my training camp. Yes, it was great.
Nice.
And then at one point we're talking about Italy, or, I think, and I'm like, oh, I'm so happy, like, Italy won the men's 100-meter sprint at the Tokyo Olympics this year. And my host mum, or my Kiwi mother, goes, oh, well, who else was in the competition?
New Zealand wasn't in it. If New Zealand wasn't there, fuck it, who cares?
Yeah.
So that was really funny. I was like, well, Jamaica was in it, okay?
It was the best in the world. It was the best in the world.
There couldn't have been anyone else there. It was the best in the goddamn
I thought
world.
that was
Well, did they play cricket as well?
Was there rugby?
Was
won
it
the gold
rugby?
for cricket.
Much of a country then.
But it is cultural though. It's you start early in that sport. You've got the availability, you've got the access to the coaching, to the
The
facilities.
finance too. And let's be honest here.
So is strongman an actual sport, like a league sport?
Yeah,
in
you've
those
got
nations?
in
So-
Europe. You've got Strongman's Champion League. You've got World's Ultimate Strongman, which is run out of Dubai. Then you've got Giants Live, which is really based out of London. Just again, getting back to the whole Australia is isolated. If you were a promoter running a competition and there was 2 strongmen looking to do a competition, one was from Australia, one was from Germany, and you're in England. They're both the same level. They both do the exact same results, but one costs $2,500 to get there and back, and the other one costs $500. Which one are you getting?
The one called Magnuson.
Exactly. So the one from Germany.
One with the European name.
Everybody's going to know he's huge.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah.
your money is just cheaper. You can jump on a train and get from one place to another. To fly out someone from here is just more expensive. If you talk about strongman, if you talk about sport in general, in strength sports maybe, or just sports in general, you go over to those countries, the money's better. You've got more competition. You just fly from one country to another. Let's say you're doing bobsled for Winter Olympics, right? Let's say you're doing that.
For instance, let's say
For
you
instance,
might
bobsled,
just-
right?
For
Don't know
instance,
who it
canoeing
is.
bobsled.
Every country in Europe basically has a bobsled team, whatever
they
sport
do.
that
They
is.
This
do.
podcast
They
has
have
one.
they have multiple tracks there too.
100%, like versus here. You okay there?
Just getting into the
I mean-
Funny
bobsled
bone
mode.
right there.
I don't know if I'm
It's
going to
not so
compete at
funny
the next
now.
Olympics
Pulled
now.
an
No,
injury.
sorry.
The money's better, the time's better. You've got more competition over there. The competition's less here. And to be honest, the drug use is better there than here as well.
Yeah.
The state fund,
But-
The booster shots.
the
we
state
Vitamin S.
Talking about
Vitamin
marijuana.
S.
Yeah,
Vitamin S.
You know,
Yeah.
absolutely. Vitamin S is so much easier
Vitamin
over
S.
there.
I don't think there is a vitamin S.
There's
there is.
definitely
Back
some type of vitamin S, yeah.
Supplementation.
You know,
So-
you look at the next Olympics, right? And then the Olympics after weightlifting's been kicked out of LA Olympics, or it's going
And
to
boxing is on the chopping
Really?
block. And sorry, but how come boxing is on the chopping block when skateboarding and not even skateboarding, sorry, skateboarding, okay, but breakdancing
Yeah.
over boxing,
And
which
golf.
is a traditional
tennis.
sport. Anyway, sorry, to go on.
Did
We can
boxing
circle
cop?
back.
The thing is though, did boxing cop as many drug bans as weightlifting has?
No,
That's
it's
the
more to
reason
do
why
with
we're being.
corruption. We've got corruption.
So you guys have corruption, and
Yeah.
we have like
Drugs.
stupid amount of drug use.
Kind of
So
crimes.
there's the two biggest things that are going to be the falling point because
One would have thought for the Olympic Committee, both of those things would have been completely appropriate.
well, yeah,
Oh,
that's
absolutely, yeah.
An Olympics run properly.
That's why Russia was banned. From the Olympics.
It's one of those things because if you actually look at the weightlifting competition at Paris, right, they've got weight classes, they've dropped them back to like 4. So you've got
Maybe I should do weightlifting at Paris.
But the problem's going to
Train
be
me up.
you got 4 weightlifting classes. Your weight class might be a spread from what's your body weight.
75.
So you might be in the 75 kilo class that goes to like 94.
Like,
So you're competing
against
73.
massive.
Go to 73.
So you'd want to cut weight. So that's the problem.
I'm actually 74. I'm finally shredding.
Did I say 75? I so meant 74.
After years of trying, I'm proud to say I've finally gone down to 74 after the 70k walk
Wow.
run. It happened after
Mickey
that.
Rourke,
I lost 2 kilos and I've kept it off.
Wow.
Have you got a music festival to go to or something?
Shredded for stereos or what?
I'm shredding for weightlifting at Paris.
You've got to put the singlet in the
2024.
back pocket so that they know that you originally did have a singlet, but you're just
Yeah,
choosing not
true.
to wear it.
Yeah.
Bit of vitamin S should help you at the music festival, that's for
Absolutely.
sure.
So tell me, what are the weight classes?
The weight classes are...
This is getting off the charts. Can we
Let's
turn
just
the
say-
air conditioning
I
on?
It is on.
That's a lie.
It's hot, yeah.
What
it's
is
hot.
it? Have it on heater mode?
Yeah, it's on heat.
It feels like
I'm going to be honest, I've been sweating over here the whole time.
Sweating when you turned up.
It's not just a big guy.
Breathing is difficult over
Do we
here
have
right
a
now.
fan? I'm just asking
Yeah.
for myself.
Well, it is on. It doesn't work very effectively,
That's
but it is
okay.
on and it's
I
on
don't
maximum.
believe you that it's on. I'm gonna excuse myself from this podcast. Let me check in.
It's an air conditioning check moment.
We're having
Yeah.
an air conditioning check.
What was your best, like, if a specific thing in strongman that you were like, this is my thing, I'm awesome at this thing?
Would be like yoke walk or anything carrying heavy across my shoulders or whatever the hell that was yelled in the background. Anything where it was heavy in carries or stones, anything for speed.
Yeah.
Anything statically heavy, I just wasn't big enough. I was just not strong enough. These guys were just so much bigger and stronger, deadlift and real heavy press and stuff like that. The guys were too big and too strong. Like it's just, like 140 body weight or 145 is just it's not big enough to be really like...
What do you think you'd need to be at your height in order to be competitive, like top
on
3
on the
body weight wise?
on the vitamin S regime?
On the vitamin, on the
I
supplements,
feel like
on the creatine,
On the ivermectin.
on the ivermectin, I feel like
on the kitchen sink.
lined up on the kitchen sink. I feel like 155, 160.
What's
be about right.
Brian Shaw? He's like 6'8" or something, isn't he?
Yeah, Brian's like 6'8" and like 200 kilos.
He can do that.
Yeah.
He claimed he was at like 205 or something, but I know he was like 220 at one con.
Wow. That's humongous.
That's 220 is what, like for like 75 pounds. Like proper like humongous.
Gigantic.
Yeah. That's
every
a monster.
ancient culture has seemingly a period of the giants, an epoch or an era of the giants.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Yeah.
Australian Indigenous culture, Sami culture, it seems to permeate through human consciousness. And I just wonder if they weren't just like giant Icelandic strongmen.
Yes.
Because like, if you
got a
had
tan.
like 50 of those dudes turn up, you go, fuck, that's
yeah.
the giants. That's
Yeah.
what the gods, that's
Yeah.
what they've seen.
It's no different to like when I remember when I first started, one of the guys, he's like, you don't know who's out there doing things that you could never believe. Go out into the middle of Canada and the wood chopping regions and you'll see some bear of a dude just knocking down a tree and then carrying it off. That's never, has never lifted a weight in his life.
But you
literally-
say this your coach just as inspiration.
Well, yeah, or just a way for me to go, maybe
Demoralisation.
guess my life isn't that good anyway. But it's just it's a
Say
wake
this
up.
straight after a PB. Well, there's a guy.
What's the old saying?
Interviewing
There's a
her.
girl in China like warming up with your maximum.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Like it's the truth.
And she's a swimmer.
Yeah, that was
And
always.
she used to be a man.
Yeah, it's just the old tuck away. That's what she started to hide all the thing.
Wow.
But, it is one of those things where
So how are trans athletes going in strongman? Just
Oh,
wondering.
is that a thing?
Yeah,
That can't be a thing.
yeah. I would imagine it
they
wouldn't
would
be.
do. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that'd be a sport
Just the
chosen.
strong
by-
Wait,
woman
I just
South
want to
Park
say, in
moment.
case that's ever taken out of context in 10 years' time when I have a career in the media, what I meant to say was they should have a separate category.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well covered.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fine. That's good.
I'll cut that anyway. But.
Yeah, my response is going to be no comment.
Oh wow! Is there anyone doing it though? Is there a trans athlete that's competing in the women's?
No, not that I know of.
They just go into sports that they know they can win against girls then. For the most part.
Well, there is that weightlifter.
Traditionally.
The Kiwi weightlifter.
As a rule.
We did
Yeah.
a podcast with some friends of mine in Sydney. We actually got a lady named Deb Lovely who was a weightlifting champion for Australia. She's probably one of our best female weightlifters of all time. Did like 3 Olympics. Wow. She was shot put champ as well, etc., etc. She's retired now. She coaches, cool. And we sat down and we made this podcast solely about trans and what she thought as a genetically born female competing against her. She had some really, really cool aspects to look at, and she's actually probably something for this podcast that may be something that you would want to chat to, because she's a lawyer as well, so she also brings the legal side of things in, but she also brings both aspects of a female coach, a female athlete, what it's like to be in that situation where you are competing with someone, but also the aspect of the way she would feel as the athlete that is the transgender athlete, the thought process of that person as well, the pressure on them as well. So there's, multiple different levels and attitudes, and, it was very eye-opening for me, because I guess for me, I looked at it from the point of view that, I don't believe that a transgender athlete should be competing with female athletes. I believe they should have their own class. If that is the way the world is going to go about it, that's absolutely fine. If that's the way it needs to be done, that's the way it needs to be done. The Olympic Committee needs to grow a set of testicles and go out and actually do it, and do it properly. Don't half-ass it like they did at the last Olympics and just go, oh, shit, let's just do it now. Oh, cool, yeah, we're good. And it builds up this massive resentment for both sides. Not just the athlete in question, but resentment to the athletes who are competing in the genetically class that they were put in. There's a good...
That they nominated for.
Yeah, right. So, and then you also have there's a clip online of the questions asked after the competition. The 3 winners, gold, silver and bronze, had a interview with the press, and they asked about her, and they just didn't answer the question. They weren't interested, and they said, this has got nothing to do with why we're here. Yeah. So there's so many different aspects, and maybe Deb's someone that I can get you guys in contact with, and you do a Zoom one with her, because she is so good. She's done multiple different sports. She's an elite level athlete, a great coach, but also someone that can speak on it better than me. I can only speak on it from the point of view as a coach of athletes, female and male, but also my personal opinions on the situation. But I don't think in this sense that they're totally justified, because it's not my competition, it's not my class. If it was involving the men's super heavyweight category where I competed and I did my time, I could then speak on it more. But it doesn't. So I tend to go down the avenue of maybe you should chat to someone who's lived it, breathed it, and understands it better than any of us really could.
But as a 140 kilo man, and amongst the strongest men in the world, claiming that perhaps you needed to put on another 40 kilos, is it genetically possible for a woman to be 200 kilos and to compete at that level?
Again, it's something for me to speak on. I can't, in the sense of that, like, I'm not a doctor, and I can't sort of speak on that side of things. It's one of those things where
it might be possible. I want to see it.
It's one of those things where you just don't know until it happens.
You guys are willing to sponsor my food.
I'm going to see the dude that loses.
I'm going to be honest. There was a girl last year who deadlifted 300 kilos in England.
That's incredible.
Wow. And legit 100% female.
Wow.
That's going to trump 90% of the guys in any gym 100%. Anywhere in the world. So, it's one of those things where there's genetic freaks that come out of nowhere. And you know what? The biggest thing growing up as a kid was the goal was to always outlift what the biggest girl could lift, right? So, like, as a male lifter, you're like, okay, if the biggest lift on a female is this much as a snatch, this much as a clean and jerk, that's your goal to outlift them. For a period of time, I did outlift the heaviest that a female lifter had done, until one of the Russian athletes, she came out and then just trounced me and everything. And I'm like, and this is what I mean. Like genetics.
Sounds like the perfect woman.
Well, she's mate.
You got their name and number for Dave.
She'll definitely do something to you, mate. But that just shows her genetics. Like, she's lifting more than most guys. Like most lifting guys, just tells you that there's a level of genetics that she's just got that's far in excess of anyone else.
What do you think of? And I really hate this. It's the bench press. The way that they're setting records and stuff with that humongous arch in the back, and there's girls that are setting records that are literally backbending.
I hate watching that because
they're moving the weight about an inch, and it's like, how is that? That's not a bench.
Yeah, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is amazing," and I'm like, "Bitch, please."
Yeah.
Different federations, different rules. Some federations will make.
What do you think, Jordan Steffans? What's your thoughts? no fence sitting.
Don't you like my fence sitting on every question?
No, here we go.
I've got a question.
Yeah. Would you count that as a... If I did that in front of you and said, mate, I can do 100 kilo, like 100 and whatever, 80 kilos, so look at this, and then I did that, you'd be like, that is bullshit.
If you did that in a competition or in the gym?
Or wherever.
Let's say...
If say it was you and me in the gym and I go, I can lift more than you.
You and me in the gym, no rules, no federation,
Gym bro rules.
Yeah,
Gym bro rules.
Yeah.
Gym bro rules. If it was gym bro rules, you only have to move it that far with nothing happening and it's a lift.
Partial rep.
Yeah, partial rep. Fine. Honestly, if I saw it in the gym as a coach... I would be asking for the athlete to get themselves in a better position to use a different technique.
Yeah.
But if they were getting ready for a competition, the federation allowed it.
Right.
I'd be fine with it.
Wow.
Because the federation allows...
So you train for that skill in that federation.
If
that's
you
what
guys
you're going
could...
there.
Okay, if you guys
you're going
could...
there for the skill of getting...
If you guys could do it, would you do it?
No.
If you could do it to set a world record and get paid, would you do it? You wouldn't do it.
Anything for the money.
Yeah.
Well,
this is what I mean. Like, these guys are getting paid. Would you do it if you had the ability?
It's different between having
not in that.
There's a difference between having a quantifiable, so part of the reason for competition is so that you've got a quantifiable benchmark for what might represent the standards of strength that everybody else is to aspire to. And so within that, there's a fairly rigid framework, and what that is a skill set. So, for instance, the skill set associated with doing an Olympic lift would be different to the skill set associated with holding a ballerina or a gymnast on the end of your hand. Both require strength, but it's a very specialised, it's a skill set. So the rules permit for a skill set to go from here to there. If that's what the rules say, that's the rules, and that's what that's the game, that's the skill.
Yeah.
But that skill's not necessarily transferring into maximum bench in terms of what a gym bro would count as a...
Because that's like me turning around and going, okay, you've seen an athlete do a snatch, the bar goes straight over the head into a bottom position, they catch and stand up. So what you're saying is, would I allow someone who can squat lower into that catch position versus someone that can't squat as low? Is that fair to the person that can't squat as low because their genetics won't allow them to do that?
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get it. Like in terms of the rules they've set out, but it's sort of like they set the rules, and then people looked at the rules and said, how can I maximize how can I manipulate the rules?
That's
to
why
my
you go
benefit?
to a federation that doesn't allow that.
Right.
So there's different feds with different rules. Some feds will say you have to have feet flat on the ground. Some will say you have to have your butt on the ground. Some say you can't use knee wraps. It's like the guys that there's a WPO, World Powerlifting Organization, where they wear like the 10-ply suits and stuff like that, and they squat, and the goal is their hamstring has to reach parallel, not the hip crease and the knee. So some of these guys got hamstrings so big, it looks like they just seriously, looks like they go like, and there's a squat. Same type of thing, but the federation allows it. If you don't like that and you hate that, that's fine. Go to another federation.
And do you think any of these things are done in experimentation to see what might be more appealing, marketably? What's more marketable? What's more appealing? What's more? How do we get more growth in the sport? And you would imagine at some level these are all efforts to do that.
Yeah, I think from you've got to look at your audience feedback as well. Like if you see any of those videos online and somebody's doing that half an inch rep and it's a world record or whatever, and you look at the feedback of that, it's just like everyone's like
but
that.
But then everybody has the chance to be able to practice that particular lift.
Whoever's got the genetics,
if it's super easy, go for it.
Yeah.
Maybe I should go do that. I get so much money. So.
You just need an arch back rather than a strong chest, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things, personally, well, I'd rather, I look back at guys like Doug Young, who was a powerlifter back in the 70s and 80s, who would do a bench press like you'd never seen. So he'd set up with a very small arch. He'd take out. It would be start, press, rack, and it was so slow at like 100k body weight, like a 270 bench, raw, no suit, no nothing, like a real. Like, you look at him, he drive trains. Like, you look at him and go, oh, man, you're a man's man. Like, you look at him and go, like, that's what he does. That type of strict stuff is what would appeal to a lot of the people. But then again, the next generation of people just want to see the biggest weights that they give a rat's ass.
Yeah, it feels like, to me, with that, it just feels like they're just manipulated the rules.
Of course, and they're going to keep doing that. It's like when powerlifters turn to strongmen, you go, why do you use straps while you deadlift? You know, your grip can't handle it. Like, most of the top powerlifters in the 90s and 2000s turn around and go, well, they deadlifted like 460 without straps, and they always knew they could do more if they wore straps in comp, but they never got the opportunity. Now they're retired. If they had the opportunities that they have now, they probably would have pulled more than that. Andy Bolton, who's the first man to pull 1,000, reckons the only reason why he didn't pull more than 1,000 is because his grip couldn't hold on anymore. The weight was just too heavy in his hands. Strap up, he probably would have pulled like 470, 480, like years before anyone else pulled it.
Yeah.
But that's just the beauty of hindsight, right? Like, you look at it now, but you know, then it all goes back to like people's thoughts on what they think is going to be better for viewing and stuff like that. But I'm going to be a real pest, and I'm going to have to nick off and start coaching. I'm going to be up in Mount Barker in 25 minutes.
All right.
Okay, so we'll wrap it up by saying what's planned for 2022?
What's planned for 2022 is a longer podcast with you guys. Honestly, like, this is one of those things where I feel like I could just keep chatting to you guys forever. Like, it's one of those things where I just love coming here and chatting. Like, it's just so cool. So I'm going to be back on here again before 2022 is out.
Fringe show.
You guys are coming to the Fringe Show.
Fringe Show again.
I was about to say, you guys need to come to the Fringe Show and maybe do a podcast at the Fringe.
We'll do a live thing.
Or do a
as you're doing
I'll
your
interview
performance.
people.
You could do a vlog at the Fringe.
So
mate,
down.
You know?
What did you think of Jordan's performance? Out of 10.
The first question is going to be is, who's Jordan? And you're going to be walking out of the popcorn show at midnight. You know, so look, get the Fringe out of the way. You know, have fun, just enjoy it, get through it, get through the rest of the bullshit the world is throwing at us, and you know, try and support my athletes the best I can. That's the other big thing, is coaching and just supporting the guys and girls I coach. And then maybe have a look towards the end of the year if my body's in decent shape at another world record before the end of the year's out. But again, like I said,
And what kind of world record would you be
not
looking
sure.
1 inch bench press.
I don't think
biggest arch in back.
my poor old back would not allow me to do that. I get a small arch, and I'm like, oh, that's just nasty.
There's going to be a category for arch back for strongman, like, which would be about here.
Good news is we got massive bellies, so the distance is nothing. But
Rebound it off.
yeah,
like a
100%.
trampoline. Yeah.
You know, get through the year in one piece, and like I said, hopefully do maybe like I said, one more world record, but just get the Fringe done first. That's first and foremost, and survive that.
Fringe world record.
I think you're forgetting something, Biggie.
Oh, yes, that'll be after Fringe. That could be a good line in for me. So this one has been wanting to do a train pull sometime this year. So once the Fringe is done and I can have a chat to the guys up at Steam Ranger, hopefully they will let us have a crack with maybe one of their diesel locomotives or something like that. One of my girls pulled an oil tank a few years back.
That's awesome.
So that was just the oil tank, like the rail cart with the big oil tank on the back. It's really cool. But maybe a train will be the next one. So maybe one of the diesel locos or something like that. We'll have a crack at something like that, hopefully mid this year, which will be nice. This one's just going to keep on my case and make sure I don't.
Yeah, we'll do. Good to know.
Absolutely. And then see you guys more often. And then Apex. I don't know what's going on with that this year.
What is happening with Apex?
Well, it's coming up.
March the 12th. Yeah.
March the 12th is the proposed date, but in this era of COVID, you can never be too confident. But that's what we're hoping for. So, which would be fantastic. So everybody can hop along and see a whole range of stuff. They can see you down there, and of course you'll be have your consort of very, very strong men picking up things and throwing things around.
Absolutely.
Jordan with a bear and a little car going around. I think it's
I'm buying a little car. little pink thing and just driving around there, I reckon.
Yeah, Barbie one. That'd be great. All right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us once again on another episode of the Daily Combat Podcast. I think we've drunk more alcohol than we ever have before on the podcast, and I think the podcast was better for it. Certainly Matthew Connolly was. Ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Biggie Steffans.
Thank you, guys.
All right, guys, we'll see you next time.